Today we're doing a ranking of the top 10 PS2 games. This is a system that I've always enjoyed, and it's one of the most popular systems of all time, and to this day it's still PlayStation's best-selling console. I absolutely love this system, and of the three that were released at the time, between this, Xbox, and GameCube, this one actually does have my least favorite library of those three, but it's a reliable system, especially over the Xbox, which just has a notorious reputation of breaking down, but I've spoken on that many times on this channel. So without further ado, I decided to give you guys my ranking of the top 10 PS2 games. This was actually hard to make this list, mainly because while I do love the PS2, usually if the game is on the GameCube or the Xbox, I would usually go for those versions. But I think I did narrow it down pretty well to the ones that I do enjoy on the system. So without further ado, let's get started. Coming in at number 10 is Soul Reaver 2. Legacy of Kain is a great series, and this video game is one of my favorite in that series. My all-time favorite Legacy of Kain game is Blood Omen 2, but I prefer the GameCube version of that. But Soul Reaver 2, you just can't beat. This is a really great game, and if you like the first Soul Reaver on PlayStation 1, you'll very much like this one. A great continuation that shows Raziel on his continued quest of vengeance against Kain. A really fun entry into the series, and one of my favorite of the Legacy of Kain franchise. You can't go wrong with Soul Reaver 2. Up next is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I have always loved the Harry Potter games, and I think it's a great franchise of movies and books. Secrets might even be my favorite of the series. It's close between this and Prisoner of Azkaban, but this is just a really great game. It's also available on the PlayStation 1, but I do have to admit the PS2 version is much more deep and has a lot more to do, better graphics, better gameplay. It's also available on Xbox, but I grew up playing the PS2 version, and I do think that this is a really great and fun adventure. A really fun game. If you love Harry Potter, you're going to love this one. Up next, we have Half-Life. Originally released on the PC back in '98, this PS2 port of that game is actually really fun and a really faithful port. I've always loved the Half-Life series, but I've never been much of a PC gamer, and I'm so glad that they actually put this on a home console. A really fun and entertaining game with lots of good shooting, a crazy sci-fi story, and the beginning of something great. I really do enjoy the Half-Life series, and maybe one day we'll get an official Half-Life 3. Half-Life Alyx seemed to be a pretty good step at that, but it's not officially a third game. Still very fun. Love this port. If you like Half-Life 2 and you haven't tried the first one out, maybe give the PS2 version of 1 a shot. Up next is a game that I do own, but unfortunately don't have in my possession at the moment. I believe I let a friend borrow it, but that's God of War 2. I think it's the best of the pre-God of War 3 games. God of War 3 being my favorite of the franchise, but I'm always a fan of 2, and I think it's a fun hack-and-slash adventure. Sorry that I have no frame of reference for it right now, but just know that it would make this spot on the list. Very enjoyable and fun hack-and-slash adventure. If you have yourself a PS2, give God of War 2 a shot. Up next, we have Mafia. This game is amazing. It's also available on Xbox, but both versions are about the same, and I've played both to death. It is a really fun game. You play as this taxi driver ends up accidentally working for the Mafia, and you basically rise to the ranks and take over the city with these ruthless criminals. It's a really fun game with good gameplay, pretty decent facial animations, although the overall graphics are a little bit dated. But what really makes this game so great is, I'd have to say, the story. It's actually one of the more deep and compelling games in the free roam genre. You actually will not see Grand Theft Auto on this list, and I did have fun with San Andreas and Vice City, but when it comes to free roam crime action, I gotta go with Mafia all the way. The gameplay's not as deep or as complex as those games, but the story really, really drives you into this world and doesn't let go. This is a very fun and intense game, and I highly recommend it. It also had a remake called Mafia Definitive Edition on the PS4, which is also a fun reimagining of the game with better gameplay and better graphics. But something about the original version I think I always prefer more. It's just more kind of rustic and old school feeling. But both of these are really fun, and I recommend both of them. Up next, we have Silent Hill 4 The Room, a very crazy psychological horror game where you play as this guy who's basically trapped in his apartment, but there's a portal in the apartment that takes you to these really messed up worlds. This is the oddball out in the Silent Hill franchise. And I really think that it's kind of underrated. I really love the gameplay in this one. I love the dark, macabre feel. And I love the overall visual experience that this game delivers. It's also available on the Xbox as well, but pretty much both versions are identical. Out of the Silent Hill franchise, I do prefer 2 over this one, but let's just say 2 is going to make a different list than I'm going to do soon, so that's why it's not featured on this PS2 list. But out of the PS2 ones, I'd say Silent Hill 4 The Room is my favorite. Crazy, scary. If you want a good time, check out Silent Hill 4. Next is a game that I consider pure art, Shadow of the Colossus. This game is really intense. You basically fight these giant monsters known as colossi, who are scattered throughout this deserted kingdom. They're massive, they're huge, giant monsters. They're creepy. You climb up them, you stab their weak points, you ride around the horse, shoot them with arrows. However you need to take them down, that's what you have to do, all to save a girl. I just love the massive creatures in it and the gameplay. It's simple, and there's no other enemies besides the monsters, but that's what's so great about it. It's just to the point. You know exactly what you're getting with this one. It was also re-released on the PlayStation 3 with Ico, another great game that didn't quite make this list. I recommend this version if you want to play Ico as well. They're both beautifully restored here, but the game is so beautiful and so great that it was even re-released yet again on the PS4. But it all started with this PS2 classic. All versions of this game are fun, whether you're playing the PS2 version, the graphically superior PS3 version, or the beautiful remake. You can't go wrong with this game. Up next is Deus Ex: The Conspiracy. This game is a very fun espionage, action, stealth, sci-fi shooter game. Just a mouthful, but really a fun game. Originally released on the PC, this is the PS2 port of that game. The levels in this game are huge, giving you multiple branching paths and ways to complete your mission. There's characters that have their own allegiances and alliances. The story is complex. It's just basically just builds on paranoia, and is even more true to this day with shady governments and secrets and misleading news sources. But I think this game really does deliver, and is one of the best open world-ish shooters out there. Highly recommended, and its sequels are really great as well. Coming in at number 2 is my favorite Dragon Ball Z game of all time, and that is Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 2. Definitely a mouthful, but this game I think is the ultimate culmination of everything great about Dragon Ball. They essentially had a game that covers the entire Dragon Ball Z saga, as well as Dragon Ball and even GT. The game lets you free roam around maps between missions. That's how you find your fights. And they actually got that idea from Budokai 3. But they also took the gameplay of Tenkaichi 1, expanded upon it, and made one of the most huge games in the fighting genre that you've ever seen. This game is amazing, loaded with great features, characters. It takes forever to beat, and that's what I love about this game. It's just so stuffed. I think I probably put 100 plus hours into this damn game. An amazing 2-player fighting mode. Beautifully follows the story of the games. It's just my favorite of the whole series. Tenkaichi 3 did add more characters, but unfortunately its single-player mode just felt kind of watered down compared to this one. There's a lot more depth in this one, a lot more things to do. But overall, I still do like that one as well. But you really can't beat Tenkaichi 2. Coming at number 1 is Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. This is my favorite of the Metal Gear Solid franchise. You play as Big Boss. You enter the jungle, and you basically save the world from the first Metal Gear threat, while also taking down your original master. This game is great. It has a very complex story, lots of amazing gameplay that still holds up by today's standards. Great graphics. It's probably the best looking PS2 game that I've ever seen. And this game really blew me away when I first played it. It is phenomenal. And if you love stealth and action, you have to play this game. It's been re-released several times. I even have the HD version in the Metal Gear Solid collection. A really awesome collection on PS3. This game cannot be beat in the stealth genre, I don't think. So fun, so entertaining. Play this game. I figure before we go, I'd give you a few honorable mentions as well. Gran Turismo 4, a really fun and entertaining racing game that I think really blew away all the other ones in the franchise up to that point. Budokai 3, probably one of the best fighters on the system. SmackDown vs. Raw, you can't go wrong with this game. Just the combining of 2 great game franchises into one. What's not to love? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Mutant Nightmare. I really love this one, and I do like 2 more, but I played that one more on the GameCube. But as far as PS2 goes, this was my Ninja Turtles game. Budokai 2. You can't go wrong with the DBZ games, and I have to feature them. And lastly, Infinite World and Super Dragon Ball Z. Not as many honorable mentions this time around, but like I said, I really was more of an Xbox and GameCube guy at the time. But this is still a great system with great games, and you really can't go wrong with a PlayStation 2. I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed my video, and peace out.